Tom, I'm glad to get you on the show today, and I'm doing a little different. Many people are accustomed to me doing business talks, but it's great to have you on my other passion, which is helping men be better men and supporting boys to grow up to be better men as well. Good to have you here.
Well, Martin, it's great to be here. Thank you.
And I want to talk about your book that you so kindly quoted me on the back that says, every woman that is in a relationship with a man that has had loss needs to read this. That's my quote, and I stand behind it.
It's a good quote, too.
It's the book, The Way Men Heal, and you've been quite an inspiration, but also this was such a valuable tool when the passing of my own father, to give me permission to follow my instinct that I didn't hear from society in any other form.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. It's part of what the book, I think, gives people is that men's ways of dealing with their emotions is just so different from women's ways, and we don't know about that. And the book kind of teaches people what those are, where you can see them, how to deal with them.
Yeah, well, and I want to say I was just meeting with somebody recently, and they were talking about the importance of, loving yourself and other things, and I said, I just want to offer another perspective to the masculine soul. The distinction that worked for me is respecting myself.
Yeah.
More than loving myself. I remember when I was single getting criticized, you love yourself not enough or something, and going, that didn't have a reference point to me. That's like saying, well, you aren't Klingon enough. Well, I got to be more Klingon. But then when I thought, wait a second, what if I throw out what I've learned in the pop psychology and world, and I go, what's meaningful to me? Well, respect is.
Yes.
And that's the meaningful word. And part of this work is really learning to respect the masculine way of grieving. And I love your bell curve that we are, what do you say, like 80% masculine, and women are 80% feminine, and you respect their many variations. Is that correct?
That's pretty close. I think the research has shown that about 17% of both men and women have brains that are like the opposite sex. So what you get is this wonderful blend, this wonderful mix of from the very masculine women to the very feminine men and all points in between, with the big chunks being men who are masculine and women who are feminine. But you got all kinds. And so the book really is about the masculine side. So it's about 80% of the men and about 20% of the women.
And I want to talk about that because it's so important, because that loving yourself, or you're not loving yourself enough, is to me related to the way we dishonor in our sons the masculine component. Because of my personal view is we're so afraid if we offer anything to help boys or men, we'll take something away from women. That we can talk about girls and we can talk about generic, but God forbid if we actually talk about the unique issues of men in a way that might actually honor them and make them sort of supportive. But nothing. This is about the grief, the loss, and one of the examples I want to bring up is a friend who how a woman one time said to me, my husband, a father died, and I'm trying to get him to grieve. And I said, he's not grieving, and I know you've led men's groups and you wrote a book on it. What should I do? And I said, what is he doing? And he says, well, he's out re-landscaping the whole yard, and he's changing the house, and he's, and I said, well, what about the yard? And he said, well, what's the connection of the yard to his father? And he said, well, he used to work in the yard with his dad.
Yeah.
I said, why don't you start respecting that that's his grieving of his father?
Yes.
And, she started tearing up because she realized she had bought into that crap.
Yes.
And I'm sorry to be so harsh, that he had to have one way of grieving.
Yes.
Instead of appreciating what he was doing.
Yes. On the workshops that I give, a lot of women take it, and by the end of the day, they'll come up to me and say, thank you. I had no idea. And what I've learned over the years is that women really want to know how men do things differently, but they just don't know. They've never been taught. They have
Well,
no
it's almost
idea.
like we've lost permission to even talk about it. I'm going to take it
Yeah,
further than
yeah,
that.
it has gotten worse. But the
And
important thing is that women out there do want to know,
yes.
and this little book will help them get started in how you can love the men and boys around you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna. And first of all, what I love is you made it so a guy will read it.
Yes.
What
Yes.
a woman one time said to me, well, I was looking for a self-help book. She goes, "Why don't more men read these?" And I said, "Well, to a man, there's an invisible sign above it that says more reasons you're wrong." Into that stuff.
Yeah,
But
I made this. I made this little book as short as I could. There's 4 sections. The first one is just an introduction to the whole deal. The second one is invisibility, and that is teaching people how men's way of emotions, of dealing with emotions, is invisible. You can't see it unless you know the key. And the third section is, okay, so how do men do it? And it gives examples of Michael Jordan and Eric Clapton and all kinds of different people about how they connect their action in with their pain. And then the fourth section is how can we help the men we love, for both therapists and for people in general.
yeah, I
So,
just want
boom,
you.
boom, 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 out.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Something you can read. Something. I mean, this could be in the restroom.
You can
Read it
read
and
it in a
get
couple
to it.
hours easy.
And to me, the essence, and I just want to self-disclose, we're friends. There's no therapeutic history here, so I feel comfortable disclosing stuff. But to me, the essence of this was most important in the passing of my father. And I remembered what I'd learned from the men's work I'd done and also yours is to ask, what do I need to do to honor my father?
Yes.
And then trust it.
Yes.
And I went to the funeral director and I said, I want to know everything you're doing with my father. Everything.
Yeah.
I want to know it as though I was standing next to you. And I didn't know anything more that my gut needed to know it. And he says, you really do? Well, I'll come in the room, I'll explain it. And then also the importance of when he passed, I said, hold him till I get there. And I drove up to D.C. and I wanted to be present to my father's body just the way it had passed. And many of this might seem morbid, but I believe the Martin Heidegger, I'm going to paraphrase it, quote, that unless we embrace our mortality, we're not going to be fully alive.
Yes.
And they let me into the room to be with him.
Yep.
And I just didn't, I said, I don't know what, and I was talked to him and I was present and I really gave myself a chance to see his body without him in it anymore.
Yes. And those are the kinds of things that were commonplace 150 years ago and longer than that. I mean, you would be with the body. The men would go out and dig the grave. The men would build the casket. They'd do everything, and it's through the doing that they were able to connect in with these losses. And so you were wise to go and sit with your father for a while. And you're wise to build that webpage, too, about the 3 Martins.
Well, thank you, and you were kind enough to put it in the book, too. I'm going to say that.
It's a great example of the masculine side of healing,
Yeah.
How you put action into something that honors your dad, and it's through the action and the honoring that you connect in with that pain, and you process it, Very, very different from talking about the past and just the whole idea of interaction as being the most important thing, and then public emoting as being the next important thing. And it's like, no, there's so many ways to handle these things. And men find very creative ways to do things. That's what I've found over the years. Just like you did with the web page, with the other things that you've done, in honor of your dad.
Yeah, and the piece of that also was I was blessed that I had time. It was in between work to write the obituary to embrace.
System UI server.
Hold on a second.
Low battery.
Embracing.
Tell him to shut up.
That's right. This is a way we can limit our time here. But the bottom line of this was that it really got me to embrace, what do I need to do to honor him?
Yeah.
How do I feel about it? And this has been over a year later. That doesn't mean tears didn't come. That does, but I could find safe places to express them when they did.
Yes.
You know, and I gave, and everyone had advice on the funeral, but you know, I looked back on it and found how few men have ever given the eulogy of their own father. You know, and because I had the strength from the men's work I've done and from the permission from your work, I'm so grateful that I did it. But also I can live with, always wish I was more with him. I still miss him. All those pieces can still be inside of me, and it's okay. You know, that's a way I kind of keep him alive.
Yeah.
You know, I might need to do something different, or I need to re-honor him, or something like that. So I just wanted to bring this up briefly and introduce it. And you know, thank you about the book. I want to say it. I just want to say, if you're a therapist, you need to buy it and read it and take his training. If you're a woman trying to understand why your husband acts the way he is, because he, you know, someone passed, you need to read it. And if you're a man wondering, hearing all these people going, well, you need to grieve more, you need to read it also.
You're not dealing with your feelings.
Yeah, that's right. And so I really love for anything else, Tom, would you just take a minute? I just wanted to do this quickly and say, how can they get more of what you have to do? How can they learn more and take it from there?
Well, I would just strongly recommend that folks check out the book. You know, the Kindle version is just $4.99, and the paperback is what, $7.99 or something. So it's relatively cheap. There was a review from the Australia Amazon site, and the woman said, "This book is worth 10 times the amount." I thought, what a nice thing to say. And I think it is. There's gold in that book. And
from Tom Golden. Oh my God.
That's another reason. But it's when we understand each other, when we understand the way we process things, that breeds closeness. That breeds intimacy. When we do not understand the way our spouse is dealing with their emotions, we're separated. We're pushed apart. So ladies, read this book. Get a sense. It gives you ideas about what you can do to help your husband open in the way you know to heal. Anyway, that's enough said.
The other thing is, Tom, you do training for therapists, and you do public speaking and talking as well. So just mention your website, and we'll close it up.
Yeah, I have all kinds of websites. The easiest one to find me is probably tgolden.com.
Excellent. Well, Tom, thanks for this, and thanks for writing the book. And I just want to say it's okay to go out and run and write this. And, of course, you're a local owned and operated business, so I say review this guy when you get it. And look forward to our next talk on this.
Me too, Martin. Thanks very much. We'll see you.
See ya.